Good evening, good evening. So this will be the 20th chapter of the Ziggurat of Ur saga, the origin story, and the third chapter in the Three Sisters fairy tale. While I will record this video, I will continue working on the third starship. We have the two gears, and this should be the axle, but it's kind of like broken, but I will fix it. The gears are actually even rotating, which is nice. After that, I'm not sure. Probably after this video is completed, I'll probably work on the fourth. This is the starship Ptah, and this is the starship Bast. This is the 20 already prepared 20 balls. It's already with actually I placed like a generous amount of the material from the crucible of like wax and all sort of like junk, so it should be filled with a lot of life forms and neos, and even more than any other typical eggs before. So we have 20 of these. So, but first we work on the third one, and we will record the third part. It's very hot in here. I don't know why, but I feel like burning. So anyway, even when the air conditioning is right on me. So if you remember, I'm sure many of you remember, we left our protagonist Absalom with when he was about 20 years old, and with growing dissatisfaction of his society, for reasons that people actually barely even understood, like what's even the problem, but that's the way it was. And maybe we should add maybe we should mention one like episode. Which I don't know how significant it was, but maybe you should not fail to mention it. So about this time, when he was about 20, or perhaps a little more, not much more, he was involved in I would say romantic relationship with one of his many cousins, like female cousin. It was like marriage between cousins was very common in that society, especially inside the royal family. And since there were more than 20 like princes, as I said, David was the youngest one, so there were many cousins. So this wasn't surprising in itself. So she and him, like they were dating for some time, but and presumably when people started to think that maybe this is serious, because according to their perception, 20 and a little was, like completely like in a time frame that people can think about marriage, and especially within the royal family. So she broke up with him, and difficult to say why, because it was in that kind of a consensual society. Everything is done like by hints and like clues and very subtle gestures, and especially inside the royal family. But we have reason to believe that the pressure to stop it came from her parents. From a sister of David, like a princess, and her husband. And we can only we can only guess what were the reasons, and I'm not certain that it's actually like was that significant, like from Absalom's perspective, because I'm not sure that he wasn't totally like himself didn't really think about marriage yet, and and maybe he just told himself that it's not a big deal because I mean he wasn't like really, she wasn't like he didn't really wanted her anyway. I mean, as they say, maybe. So another interesting episode we should mention that it happened during this time when he was in his very early 20s. That, as I said, he liked to walk. I mean, also drive and also walk. I mean, to tour the land, their own planet, and the vast like areas of that were not inhabited by people, and sometimes he did it with his friends. He had like good friends, but sometimes he did it alone. And one time in one of his trips, he ventured deep into the desert and into the places where where the satyrs were living in. And as I said, I mean, people were very many people found it. I mean, they identify with this animal, like by far more than any other animal, and they were considered sacred. And of course, no one should have hurted them, like much more than any other. The other animal, not even like to scare them, because they were afraid of humans. So, like even part of like them being like in a sacred status was that people didn't. It was customary not to enter their territory, and not like watch them from afar. I mean, if at all, because it was known that they are scared of. That can put them in stress, because like wild goats. I mean, they have like a natural fear of humans. So one time Absalom decided that he wanted to watch them more closely. So that's what he was trying to do. So he ventured into their land until he saw one from afar, but he looked very unusual. I mean, just from afar, because it seems that there was something unusual about his looks. So he let himself, get closer to him, even though it's not customary. But he told himself that one time is not that we're not hurt. Just for the purpose of educating himself. So he allowed himself to get nearer and nearer, and the more he got closer to him, the more on the one hand, he saw more and more details that were surprising. That he never seen something like that before, and also it was evident that the satyr is not afraid of him, which was unusual. He saw that any minute he will just run away, but he just stood like where he was and waited for him, and until he was several meters, or several feet, several meters from him, which was very unusual. To get that close to them, and it was even more unusual that the satyr didn't run away, just looked at him, just stood there and looked at him, and Absalom understood what's so peculiar about him. Besides his behavior, and it was the fact that he looked almost like white, because he was covered with very, very long hair and very long beard. Sometimes they had beards, but that one was very, very long and white, and he looked like a huge blob of hair. Like white and gray hair, and this was extremely peculiar. And also, he looked extremely the eyes looked really, really wise. But that in itself, something that many people thought that that the eyes of the satyrs look smart. Wise. That's one of the reasons that they were. They thought that they're probably sentient, even though their behavior was not much more sophisticated than that wild animals. Of course, they had families and they raised their children, but this is true for many wild animals as well. And the way that they treated human was, as I said, is like what you would expect from wild animal, which means that they did everything that they can to, not to be near the humans. But this one was, so many people, imagine that, that they look like wise. That was part of the mythology around. Part of the reason why they were so, important in like I said, they had like really a sacred status in their culture. But you can never know, like, really, if it's something that was really there, because they couldn't communicate with each other, like satyrs and humans, and so you couldn't tell if it's something that is really there, or maybe it's something, with people just like to find patterns where they do not exist, like and to anthropomorphize, like to find like to find human shapes and human patterns in non-human, I would say, animals or objects. So this was very curious. So when eventually Absalom just walked away, and all the time that he was staring at him, the satyrs stared back at him, that was very peculiar. So this was the one. That one. The whole deal was very peculiar. So Absalom decided to speak about it with his father. Maybe he can understand like what's actually. How can this be explained? Like what actually he have seen. So he spoke about it with David, and David said that he's not certain, but maybe it's a good excuse. For the young man to speak with his grandfather, the king, because he was almost never spoke with his grandfather. They were not close, and Absalom didn't. As opposed to many other grandchildren. Always like especially not only when they were children, but even more so when they become young adults, they seek like the proximity of the king very, sometimes even aggressively, because they wanted maybe like for kind of like to show that they that they are close to the king or something like that. But Absalom never did it. So you almost never went to his grandfather to speak with him or to ask for advice or things like that. But so David said maybe it's a good excuse for you to go speak with him, and this would be like because he knew that he almost never speak with him, and that he's kind of like he's not there. They don't have almost any relationship at all. So Absalom said okay, and he went for the king. He met him, and he told him about what's happened, and he asked him for if he can understand what happened. So the king told Absalom that first of all that he shouldn't do it, like that he knows that. So please don't do it. You know that it shouldn't be done, so please don't do it. Like that it's not customary, and it's against their way to go near these creatures, and that please don't do it. There are reasons for that, and we respect like their place, and so don't do it. And more to the point, what he said was very surprising, because it was totally new to Absalom. Absalom didn't know about it at all. What he said, the king said that this actually is not that surprising in itself. He shouldn't do it again. He shouldn't seek such experiences, but in itself is like, to the point, it's not really that peculiar as it might seem, because satyrs are actually immortal, like humans. Now, it doesn't mean that they never die, because usually at some point they die, because they can die from accidents. And although sometimes they fight like there are tribes that fight each other in the desert or in the mountains, so they can die like from like wars like between each other, like the tribes, and also from accidents, but they don't die from natural causes. because they have the same, unlike other animals, not all animals. He said that there are other animals like in this planet that are like that. But I mean, the most prominent ones are, I mean, besides humans, are indeed the satyrs. That they have this kind of like, I mean, nature. The nature that makes them immortal. So, presumably they can live indefinitely if they do not die from accident or conflicts with other tribes, and eventually this sometimes eventually happens. But they can reach monumental ages. So what he have seen, I mean, most probably from the description, is a very, 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 very old satyr. And this explains both the looks and the behavior. Because when they become so old, they are no longer afraid of humans. When they are very, very old. So this conversation was okay. So I mean, Absalom said thank you very much and went to his way. And this conversation certainly left it left impression on him, and I would say that not a positive one. Like I would say, it for some reason, and you can also guess yourself why. You can guess yourself, like maybe better than I am. You can try to like create conjectures. Like I mean, what in this conversation was I mean, left like a bad, like negative impression and bad taste in Absalom's like mouth. So maybe you can, maybe you cannot. Anyway, that was the fact. That I mean, it only increased his dissatisfaction from his situation. And so he went to his father, and he spoke to him very, very plainly about how he feels and like the alienation that he has from society. And of course, so David, I mean, thought that it might be, I mean, related to the issue of him not being immortal. So he told him, look, I mean, the shaman, according to what, if I understand correctly, the shaman in the other side, according to what he said, I mean, now you're only 20, 21 like years old. According to what the shaman said, if I understand correctly, you can live up to 400 years. So I mean, so you have like, I mean, maybe like, you know, almost 400 years, I mean, before you, when you were so young. I mean, why does it make sense to you to think about it so much, and not only to think about it so much, but to I mean, try to, I mean, to become alienated to your people in such a way that, I mean, you feel that you cannot live with them. I mean, think about it like that. I mean, there is nothing that changed like between you and them. Only, I mean, so, and the issue of age, I mean, who knows? I mean, you have almost 400 years to live, according to this shaman. Let's say that, I mean, that his estimation is correct. Let's say that we want to believe his estimation, because they didn't have any other like estimation. They didn't have any other way to estimate them besides that. So if you use that, you say, if I understand correctly, I mean, you have almost 400 years. So I mean, why worry about it now? Maybe, I mean, the problem will just solve itself, or maybe it's not a problem at all. And why can't you like be part of like society? But I mean, yeah, but he couldn't. I mean, the fact is that he couldn't, and he didn't want to be, and his father didn't David didn't manage to encourage him at all. So during these days, a new idea was kind of like fermenting in his mind. A very, very, I would say, kind of like extreme extreme according to their, I mean, to the standards of this society, the immortals. An extreme idea was starting to like ferment in his mind, and like and he didn't speak about it with anyone until he was completely certain that's what he actually wanted to do. and because he didn't want like anyone to try to sway him from that or to put pressure on him. So he thought about it several months until he was completely sure like about like that he wants to actually do it, the plan. And then he told his mother and father that that's what he's going to do, and just like he doesn't ask their permission. He just like put it like as a fact for them to just to know that he decided that he wants to leave their place, and he knows that there is no like a place that like in the planet where he can live like alone, which he will not be like under the influence of like the royal family, because it was impossible. In every place, they had technology. They had like they had like fast transportation and communication. So he couldn't really get off the radar in their planet, and he wanted to be totally out like of the society, like to start something new. And he decided that the only the way to do it is to cross that well or that gate to the other side and to live there. But he thought about it a lot, and he thought that initially he thought like maybe I can live like with the people that that he remembered very fondly from like his visit, like when he was a teenager, like with the when he had like the shaman has done like the ceremony, the ritual, but he thought about it quite a while, and he came to the conclusion that in itself it might not be a good idea, because they might not like that. He might not find like his place there. Because it will look like he's like a refugee. That and it might like not be interpreted correctly by them, because he didn't want to be treated like a refugee. On the contrary, he wanted like to start like an independent life of his own, which will be much more independent than anything that is possible, and certainly anything that is customary in his homeland. And certainly he didn't want like to create tension between the societies, so they will think like that that he's spying on them or something like that. So he decided that the best option will be to cross the gate and to search for a place that is uninhabited in the other side, because the other side was even much less inhabited than his homeland, because they were far less technological society. Considerably less, and so they had vast land. They had vast lands that were not occupied at all, and even though it should be said they weren't, at least according to his knowledge, they were not nomads. They had agriculture. It was evident by even like the short visits that he remembered for like a week or two, it was enough to see what they eat and to understand that they are not nomads, and they grow food on permanent lands, like on permanent settlements. So he decided, that to go there and to search for a place that is not inhabited, and to start a place in its own, to start a settlement of one person by its own, and to learn how to grow food, and to be much more independent than his customary, tremendously more than anything that everyone like in its own place even thought about, because as a technological society they were very dependent on automation, certainly for basic stuff like agriculture, and even for much more advanced stuff. As I said, they had tremendous amount of technology that they were inherited like from different generations, that they treated that like in reverence, like it's kind of like a religion. Like that they don't need to change it, but they revert it, and like they keep it like for next generation. So he thought that maybe if we'll go to the other side and start a settlement, it will be able to afford start a place like that is completely like according to his like his own preferences, and also you will need, of course, to learn how to grow stuff, and how to to create things and basic technology. I mean, at least all of this was he was charmed by this. He was very young and he didn't thought too much about like the hardship, even though we understood that there might be hardship, but he wasn't spoiled at all. Like even though he was, technically he was a prince, but he was used to hard conditions and to life in the backwoods from that. Only temporarily, but nevertheless he had some experience with that, and he was sure that he could of course create like a new place that will be out of the reach of the people in his homeland, but that will be comfortable enough to live in for permanently. And of course he saw that while he wanted to leave the place like his homeland, it's not that he abandoned it completely. He thought that from that time he could get back like to the homeland and like maybe initially just to ask for like favors from like his father or mother, and so they will help him with maybe bits of technology, for just the initial part of the like how to start farmlands and to grow stuff and maybe basic electricity. But the idea was that with time to become independent, and so everything that we will need will actually be either grow in the land or manufactured in this settlement, including of course electricity and textile and everything that is needed for humans to live. So that was the idea, and of course they were speechless. To say that they objected, it would be, redundant. They didn't really know what to say because they understood that he understand that they are completely against it and that this is like a horrible idea. And so what? They didn't have much to say besides that. To be said, and it was like just that was the situation. Of course they were against it. But still, when they saw that he's very serious and that he was about to actually go, so they told him that maybe he can like use the communication device, because they had communication that worked even like between the sides. That was established even like in the time where David actually went there, and so they wanted him to take like communication devices with him and to get like to go back to visit from time to time. And of course they hope that the whole thing will just be completely disaster. Not that something will happen to the son, but that he will actually see that how difficult it is, and that reality will kind of crash in his face in a way that he will understand that this is kind of like a pipe dream of young men, and that it's best just to go back to his place in the royal family. Of course that's what they hope, but and of course you understand and understood what they hope, but nevertheless he was stubborn and that's what he wanted to do. And at that point he could also the only thing that they could do is to hope that they will be back soon, and then to prompt him to get back to in any case to visit and to take stuff. Of course that so not to be shy to take stuff with him wherever. Not be, and they also they prompted him not to be too hung up on the whole independency issue, because it's probably extremely difficult, and it's okay if he will take technology and food and whatever needed from home, because of course they didn't want him to whatever, starve or die from diseases, or I don't know what could happen in such places. They didn't even want to think about it, but he was very stubborn. So so that's what he did, and he actually went there, and he found a place place, like an empty place that was about like something like 1 day or 2 days, between 1 or 2 days walking from the nearest like human native settlement, the one that that he visited and the one that where his mother was born. And this place was empty, and it was evident to him that it's not claimed by no one, and just like piece of nature. And as I said, it was evident for him that they were not nomads. So it's not like he's taking, according to his understanding, it's not like he is taking like grazing grounds from them or roaming or hunting grounds, because they were not. They did like they didn't do it. They didn't hunt. I mean, they did agriculture. So it was evident for him that this is an empty land, and he just settled. First with just a tent, and just like they built new settlement. First a tent, then like a simple house, and of course initially it was completely dependent on food from his homeland, because it takes time to actually start agriculture. But he was very persistent with that, and he actually managed to create some kind of like a farm that actually to produce food. And this was very surprising from like the point of view of his parents, and also of course not positive, because they wanted him to get back. And this, they thought that for certainly sometime he will get back, but if he's managed like to be independent and to try to build like started farm, so it only makes like the time where he inevitably will, according to what they thought, get back to the like to his home, like it only postponed it. But he actually managed to do it, and to start to grow food. And at that time, something surprising actually happened. The people didn't, even he didn't thought about it like that's going to happen, but it actually did happen. So what happened is that the rumor about this kind of like a very weird thing spread across the land, his homeland. And after some time, like several young men, like 3 or 4 young men that were about his age and knew him, maybe 1 or 2 were actually his friends, and the others just knew about him. They decided that they want to join this settlement, and they actually, these 3 or 4 like young guys, they also crossed the gate and went to visit him, like when he in his place, and they were very, it was very exciting for them, like the whole idea of like an independent place outside the reach of the the very, very conservative society, and the very conformative society. And they really liked, the fact that he was able to use technology, from the ground up, and to start growing stuff. So they asked him if it's okay if they will join the settlement. So it will be actually like an actual settlement, not like one man like institution. And he was very fine with that. It wasn't like antisocial. On the contrary, he actually he missed like he missed like being close to people and to speak with people. Even though that did not discourage him from like building his place, this kind of loneliness. But once they were already there, and they talked with him, so he remembered that it's nice to speak with people and to to eat with people, to be with people. So he was very happy with the request that to try to stay in this settlement and like be part of it. So he was he told them that they are more than welcome, and so they went back for all sort of arrangement. And after a while, as planned, of course their families, you can only imagine what was the reaction of their families anyway, after some time, yes, they actually went as planned to the other side of the well, of the gate, and they joined this community. And of course they built the huts or like small like houses, and it was officially a settlement, not just a one-man like crazy dream house like in the wilderness. And when the king heard about it, of course, that there's actually, like I said, it's a settlement that with several young men there that that are living there. And when the king heard about it, something very, very unexpected actually happened. Something very, very unexpected. Something even historical happened, I would say. So he decided that he gathered all these sons and daughters, all the princes and to the throne room or to the ceremonial room, and for conversation with his family, and he told them that he decided that he'd lived long enough and that he does not want to live no more. And they knew that sometimes such thing happened. That it was a thing that happened like in the modern society, although not common at all, but it's something that happened. But they were shocked about it because no one thought it's going to happen anytime soon. But that was his decision. And also he told them something that was very peculiar, and they didn't know and that was kind of somewhat new to them, is that he's not going to transform into another human being, because this was something that the immortals could do, to die, but to transform into a new baby and to start a new life in which they do not remember anything from their previous life. But many people believe that the new person is in some way, spiritual way, connected to the older one, like the died one. And it was, in matter of belief and point of view, what was actually kind of the relation between the dead, because the person was dead. He was no longer, there was no way his entity was, was no longer reachable, but there was out of his immortal essence, there was a way to create a new baby. That was they believed maybe you say some would say it's like in the Dalai Lama, in Earth, that presumably something like that passed between lives, even though he's probably the young child does not remember anything from the former Dalai Lama's life, or maybe he does. It's a matter of a belief, more than science, I would say. So that was something that some people did. They decided to end their life. After a long time, mostly, and they had this ritual way, that was arguably technological and arguably religious, to transform their soul, if you want, to the body of a new baby. But he decided he's not going to do it. And instead, what he told him was something that he didn't know at all, what to make of it. But so he told them that he will not transform, but to a new body, but his soul will be with them and will watch them, and they will be able to communicate with him using some kind of supernatural connection, spiritual connection. And in order, to actually do it, it's not technological. It's not is there kind of an ancient technology that we are not aware of? So he told them, no, it's not something like that. It's more like a spiritual thing, that he needs something like prayer, that they need to pray and they didn't need to do it alone, and when they pray, and so he will appear to them, and they will be able to communicate with him. And when they just need to believe that it's possible, and and to trust him that it's not something that is entirely new in their culture, and that while it rarely happens, it happens, and it's possible to actually communicate with kind of like with people that decided to go like the path that he went. And he told them that even he, like during his life, he communicated with such like souls of his ancestors, that some of which decided to go that way. But it's not something that is spoken about even like with his family, because it's something extremely personal. And he told them that that they shouldn't speak about any of them that will actually want to speak with them, decide to put the spiritual effort to create this communication with him, they shouldn't speak about it too much. Not because it's a secret, but because it's something very personal, and it's a little bit spoiling or desecrating, I should say, the experience if people speak about it with other people. It's something extremely personal that a person can communicate with the souls of his or her ancestors. So they shouldn't speak. There was somebody that he didn't speak about it, about how he did it with how he communicated with his ancestors. They shouldn't speak about it in public, because it's something extremely personal. But they should know that he will be there watching them and that they can explicitly communicate with him if they wanted to. But even if they should know that he's watching them, and that his soul is still exists, and he also told them that they should decide who will be the new king or queen, and he's not going to to say anything on the matter. In addition to that, they should decide themselves. And when he said they, he meant his daughters and sons. They were shocked, but they were shocked by this, but eventually it just happened. What can you do? So that's what happened. What happened is that he died, but and he wasn't presumably transferred, his soul into new, a young child, it was in the Dalai Lama, but at least initially, they didn't understand how this kind of communication could actually take place. They didn't understand how it's going to happen, but who knows? Maybe with time they thought maybe they will figure out with time, because supposedly it's something. If they trusted what he said, so it should be something that maybe it will be more clear with time. That they will kind of and understand it by themselves, how to communicate with him. And of course, there was the pressing question of who should be the king, because they knew that very quickly they should decide who's the king, who's the new king, because they knew that for the sake of the realm, it's important that people will not think that there is no king or queen, because they were emotionally people were very dependent on this institution, that it was very important for everyone that there is a king or a queen. Extremely important. Even though, as I said, it wasn't like that the king ordered command every day, or not at all. It was mostly a conformative society that the king almost he showed his will very rarely, and using a very subtle gestures, but it was enough. So they understood that they needed to decide who is the next king. Who should be the next king? So they decided that the best way to do it is in three stages. That first, that they will everyone that wants to be the king out of them, like the daughters and the sons, will like place his name in kind of like like will offer his nomination, but this will be done like initially in a secret way. So so there will be like one specific event where all the where everyone nominated. When all the names of the nominees are exposed. So there will not be, so people will not just be nominated just to block other people, or so there will not be, so to ensure that, only people that really wanted it will actually nominate themselves, and because if it was kind of like a progressive, like process that, people can actually see who nominates himself, and then choose if they wanted to be also to pose nomination. They feel that it's going to be like something very dirty, because so people that don't really want to be this, will nominate themselves, to create all sorts of kind of like blocking kind of like blocking mechanism against other nominees. And then maybe to withdraw their nomination later. So they decided it's best that everyone that wants to actually be, that actually want to be to offer their nomination will put his name is in kind of electronic safe vault, and this vault will be open in one after a couple of days, and when they are all present, and then it will be, they will see what. Who offered, who are the nominees, or who offered their nominations, and this will be the final list of nominees. There will be no more after that. No one could actually nominate him or herself. So this will be like one event where all the nominations are exposed, and then after that, 2 days after that, there will be another meeting in which people can raise concerns about, if they had any, about certain nominees, if they wanted to disqualify one or more of the nominees. They will have 2 days to think about it, and then to kind of to raise their concerns, or their why this or that nominee should be disqualified. And they will speak about it and see if they're really good, if this kind of if the reasons are actually correct, and if this nominee should be disqualified. And they were certain that, since it was so conformity society, they were certain that it will be, easy to actually, decide between them if disqualification is required. Once the reasons are brought up to everyone. And after that, a couple of more days after that, there will be another meeting of everyone in which they will actually vote everyone will have one vote, equal vote, of course, and they need to vote. They will need to vote who is their favorite nominee, one vote. And they didn't thought about what's happening. It will be a tie, because they thought that if there will be a tie, they will think about what's going to happen. But for now, they thought that this protocol is complicated enough, and it covers all possibilities, in a good way. So that's the way to do it. So so then they had this meeting. So they opened this kind of electronic ballot where people can actually nominate themselves, and so after 2 days they met again, and they opened this vault where with all the names of all the people they nominated themselves. And it appeared that there was only one name, and that was David. So he immediately became the king. So, and of course the people, of course this was known throughout the land, and it was. I mean, they didn't tell the people how this kind of like how he became the king. Like they didn't. It was not publicly. They didn't publicize like the protocol of like how the new king was elected. They just said that, I mean, the king is dead, as you know, and the new king is David, and that was it. Okay, so it's really hot in here, so I'll take a break and to drink something and eat dinner, and probably a little later we will continue with the fourth chapter of this fairy tale.